Hey everyone, welcome to the Canine Culture Podcast, where we talk about everything dog. Q&As with veterinarian professionals, rescue operators, everyday topics. We cover everything dog on this podcast. So make sure you subscribe to the Canine Culture Podcast on your favorite podcast platform, and make sure you're following us on social media on both Instagram and Facebook. Thanks again for listening. Now here's that next episode. Hey everyone, welcome to the Canine Culture Podcast. This is your host Brittany, and today we are joined by three trainers from the Dog Wizard. So we have Amanda, Chrissy, and Ro with us today, and this segment is Ask a Trainer. So you might have seen on social media whenever we asked for some questions for trainers, you guys sent in a handful of questions, and so the trainers are going to field those today. So thank you guys for joining us. If you guys want to each introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about yourselves, and where you're located, because the Dog Wizard is all over the United States.
Yep. Amanda, go first.
Okay. Hey, I'm Amanda. So I've been with the Dog Wizard specifically for about the last 5 years. I'm with the educational department, so I work with the academy. But I've been training dogs since 2006. I went through Animal Behavior College to get a real, foundational understanding of how dogs learn, and have been training dogs ever since. I would say that my niche is puppies. I like to work with puppies and doing lure work. So yeah.
Awesome. I'm Chrissy, and I am also part of the educational department with the Dog Wizard, also a franchise owner and a dog trainer for the Dog Wizard. I would say time spent training, I've been around animals my entire life, but really getting into it on the business side of things back in 2016. I was the typical person that had the office job that wanted to stop working in an office really bad and just get outside in the sunshine and work with animals. So I finally made it come true. I would say my niche is trick training. It's something that I really enjoy, but I have a new passion that I'm kind of leaning into a little bit with hunting dogs, learning more about it. And we'll let Ro go next.
I am Ro. I am also a franchise owner with the Dog Wizard. My background is police canine stuff, protection work, a little bit of narcotics. I have locations in both Indianapolis and Colorado. I love behavior mods. Give me all the aggressive unmuzzled dogs. Chrissy loves that. Um, but my niche is definitely the protection side of stuff. I just think it gives you a different view on why dogs do what they do and how we can help them not do that in a good way.
Yeah, you guys are a well-rounded team. We've got like a little bit of everyone on this call, which is perfect. And okay, so Ro, you have a location in, you said Indiana and Colorado, right?
Correct.
And Chrissy and Amanda, where are you guys located?
So I'm in
South
Ashland,
Carolina. I
Kentucky.
have the Greenvilles and Spartanburg and Columbia, South Carolina locations.
And then Amanda, you're Ashland, Kentucky,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, Ashland,
Yeah,
Kentucky.
Amanda's right by my hometown. That's like where I'm from. I'm from like Huntington, West Virginia area. So I know exactly where you're at. So that's
Yeah.
perfect.
It's a small
All
West
right.
Virginia is beautiful.
We'll leave it at that. That's the perfect thing to say. It's a simple one-liner.
That's funny.
All right, so we'll jump into the questions. So we've got 5 questions today. And you guys can either all 3 answer if you feel like your answer is a little bit different or if you have a different take, as the dog hair goes flying through the video. Or you guys can choose someone to kind of answer. So the very first question is, what's your favorite tool for training and why? And tool could be very vague, so you can include anything as a tool.
Go first.
You guys are twinning today.
We are twinning.
I really like an English slip lead. Truthfully, you can do a lot with an if I could say it, an English slip lead.
How is an English slip lead different? Like when I think of slip lead, I just think slip lead. Like I just think of the P-shaped slip lead. So how is it different?
It is a P-shaped slip lead.
Okay,
Yeah.
It's just the proper name for it is an English slip lead.
gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay.
And the reason I like it is because it's a very calming tool. It's very easy to use, and it's very transferable with other animals as well. Not like necessarily a slip lead, but the whole concept behind using the tool properly, which is like pressure and release, and how the dog responds to that, and how you're utilizing that with language with the dog. Um, is utilized a lot in horses also whenever you're applying pressure with that whoa with reins.
Mm-hmm.
Very
Whoa.
similar to a whoa with the dog, just on a different scale.
Yeah.
But that's one of my favorite tools.
That's a good one.
Yeah, I was gonna simplify it just by saying the leash.
The leash.
So around the same, the same thing that you were thinking, Chrissy, but just being able to communicate with the dog. When you're teaching a dog something new, you don't go straight off leash, right? So having that leash will help you, it's a direct line of communication from you to your dog. So my favorite tool would be simply a leash, whether that is an English slip lead, a flat buckle collar, however you're using it. My favorite tool is a leash.
Okay. Yeah. And that could even be extended to like a long lead if you're working on recall, or I had to use the leash for potty training for one of my dogs, and I hadn't potty trained a dog in like, gosh, 10, 15 years. I didn't even know how to do it anymore. And so I had to like rely on the
Skill.
leash, like, come on, we're
Yeah.
going out now. Like, just the idea of being able to control and communicate, like you said.
Yeah.
That's a
Yeah.
skill. So you guys know what I'm gonna say. I'm an
Say it.
e-collar
That's
fan.
my second. Well, I guess
I'm a
who's
huge
my
e-collar
second,
fan.
and then e-collar. Sorry,
Yeah.
go ahead, Ro.
I just think it's such an impersonal tool when you do it correctly that it really brings across clear communication, you know? Especially again when it's conditioned correctly, it is like mind-blowing what can be accomplished, regardless of the temperament of the dog, behavioral problems, like the communication is just untouched, you know? It's like somebody just always whispering in your ear, consistent all the time. Of course you're gonna make good decisions, you know?
Right. I
Yeah.
think so many people misunderstand an e-collar because it's been labeled as like a shock collar, and it's like it's truly not, especially like the little mini educator. They go from 0 to 100, and those first 30 are just like, a little vibration, just like someone whispering in your ear. So I think it's so important that people start to recognize how helpful that tool can be and maybe just be more
Hmm.
open-minded to it, because you'd be surprised at how many people I've talked to that are completely against it and they think it's such a crazy concept, and it's truly not.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
it
And
should
like
be
when you
used.
see
Go ahead,
well
sorry.
when you see a well-trained e-collar dog, it blows your mind. Like when we had Pat Nolan over for that seminar and he was talking about radio training, radio collar training those dogs. What in that is insane. Oh, you can't even imagine dogs can do that, you know? I don't know. It's just cool.
What a
Hmm.
better quality of life to give your dog, be able to give your dog a good amount of freedom, but also have that peace of mind that if you do need to tap your dog on the shoulder and say, "Hey, I need you to come and check in," because you're
Yeah.
sensing or you just want them to come and check in, like you have that ability. So it truly is an invisible leash if you use it in that way. Can you abuse it? Of course, you can abuse it, but you can abuse any tool. You can abuse a flat buckle collar, right? So it's a wonderful tool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
You're
have a behavioral case of my own. I was telling Ro, I went through 7 trainers before I found the
Seven
right one.
trainers.
He was on the euthanasia list. He had an extensive bite record. Finally, we found a trainer who actually she came over to record the podcast. She saw he was acting absurd and put him on a slip, ran outside, and immediately got him to behave. And I was like, "Oh, you're hired." She was like, "Oh, I wasn't looking for business." I said, "Well, you're hired." And so she got him on an e-collar after a few sessions, and game changer, game changer. And he understands what we want from him and his expectations. And so now
That's
the dog that used to bite and attack everyone loves everyone, wants to be with everyone, like is engaged. He goes to place, which I never would have thought. Even today, he let out a bark at Amazon, looked at me, and I didn't touch anything. And he was like, "Let me just go to place and be quiet." And literally just went and laid down because he's like, I messed up. Like he already knew, you know?
yeah. And I think just teaching dogs to make good decisions is something we're really big at the dog whisperer. Because you could micromanage your dog all day, but at some point you just can't. You're mentally drained. You have other dogs. You have kids. You have a life. and we need our dogs to start making those decisions on their own. And I just think the collar bridges that gap of less than 6 feet and a bunch of furniture in your house if you don't have a love line.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
All right. We'll move on to the second question. And this one's a popular one. So, my dog has separation anxiety when I leave. What tips do you have to lessen his anxiety?
To just like blanket statement this, anything advice wise that a dog trainer gives you, especially like over a podcast or a YouTube video, needs to be said that like just because some advice is not going to work for all dogs. Every dog is a little different, but just general assessment, how we would help a dog with separation anxiety whenever you leave the house is no big hellos or big goodbyes is the first one that comes to mind for me. And then the second big thing, and I can get into like what that means. The second one is don't let them follow you room to room. So a lot of dogs that have separation anxiety or panic whenever the owner leaves, they like to like follow them into the bathroom a lot, following them into the kitchen, following them room to room. If you can kind of interrupt that habit of constantly following and looking to see what the owner is doing all the time, it helps a lot with learning how to self-soothe and not rely so much as like a safety blanket.
Yes.
But no big hellos, no big goodbyes means no like, oh yay, I love you so much. Let's cuddle and kiss and
So, what I used to do. Yeah.
oh honey, mommy has to leave. I love you so much.
Literally what I used to do. I was trained to stop doing that because I was the problem.
It's so hard.
It's
It's
funny.
so hard to do. And it's not that you can't do those things. It's just it shouldn't be like such a big deal because the bigger deal you make it, they're going to make it a bigger deal. They're going to match your energy level. But that's my advice for it. And Amanda and Ro can definitely add to that. That's just the first two things that come to mind.
Yeah. I would say that your crate is not just for when you leave, because if you're only throwing your dog in a crate when you leave, then they're going to associate it with you leaving, and that really goes with anything. Like dogs will start to recognize triggers, like you picking up your keys, you putting on your shoes, you grabbing your bag or whatever. They'll start to recognize those things, and then here comes the big goodbye, right?
Yeah.
And like every single time, every single thing that trigger sets off, the anxiety just keeps rising. So if it's more of like, just to kind of piggyback off of what Chrissy said, if it's more of just like, not a big deal. I might go grab my keys and then go sit on the couch. It doesn't mean I'm leaving, right? I might go put on my shoes, go out for a few seconds, but then I might come back in, right? I might just throw my dog in the crate while I'm still at home walking around, because the crate doesn't mean I'm leaving for 5 hours. Because all those things can create anxiety if they are tied to you leaving.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that makes sense.
I'm a huge fan of a lot of independence in the house. So I'll tell you, send you to place, like kind of what both of them are saying. Like I create actual separation, like from the get-go. Like I love my dogs, but we do things, you come home, you chill. And chill doesn't mean in my lap, it just means you can go do something else. And I think that just makes them be very, oh, cool, in the moment kind of beings. But I think a big thing we think about is schedules as puppies, and most people don't move away from schedules as the dog gets older. And that creates a lot of the separation stuff because, like, hey, it is 5 minutes before the sun rises and all these things. And again, they become very structured. So I tend to move away from schedules really early on to help the dogs generalize that the expectation is more of like we're inside, we calm down, we're outside, we do things, and then I can be in here with you or not in here with you. But the generalization is like you're going to be fine regardless. I'm not leaving you. I'm coming back at some point.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think those are all really good tips and things that people just don't intuitively think about. All right, let's go to the third question. So, my dog barks every time someone's at the door, even if it's just Amazon dropping a package. How can I stop this?
Oh, you can start this one.
Place. Just send the dog to place. And like you did it with your dog. You literally just said it happened.
Yeah,
So
but
like,
that Place fixed it because Place is
yeah,
like you're going to lay here, you're going to be quiet, you're going to settle, and you're going to be here until I give you your command to release.
exactly. And I think the thing about place, people don't practically use it, but I like to call it a counter conditioning bed. So I use it with the intention of counter conditioning certain behaviors. But it also makes the job easier for dogs because they've had so many repetitions on it without that distraction. So when you put them on it, like they might be a little bit amped, but instead of going from an 8 to a 10, they're going from like a 0 to a 2. So life becomes a lot easier for you and for them because there's already like pre-existing behavior that's kind of on the bed. Um, and then eventually, at some point, again, we get back to decision making. Are you going to do this unless, or are you going to do this if I don't say place, or do you have to wait for me to say it? And that just means you may need to do just a little bit more work to get to that point. But yeah, I'm a huge fan of place.
And just to add to that, something that I like to do and try to teach clients to do is owners in general can be kind of hard on the dogs in moments that they're barking. So they give a lot of verbal correction in those moments, like, stop, quit barking,
No bark.
no bark, off, enough, whatever. It's the dog is going, the owner is going, and it's just in general a lot of energy again. It's a lot of noise happening. I like to try to coach owners to be more proactive and rewarding for calm behavior. So if you notice someone slams a car door on your street and that's a trigger for your dog before somebody comes and knocks on the door, you know a package is going to get delivered, or you know pizza is going to get delivered, or you know your Uber Starbucks is going to be showing up any minute. Any of those things, you know when those things are happening, be proactive, get a bag of treats out, and just start like, dog looks, here's the thing, and just give them some food for not barking.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Start praising the dog for not barking
Yes.
before the barking starts.
Right.
And they're going to find it way more rewarding to not bark than to bark.
Hmm.
Yeah. And get
Absolutely.
corrected the entire time.
Yes.
Yeah, that was basically going to be my suggestion is just setting your dog up to succeed. Giving privileges, taking privileges away. If your dog is a window barker and there is a platform and stairs up to the window, take that away. I've seen many people, have couches right under their window, and I get it, but maybe bring the couch out a little bit and make it a little bit harder for your dog to just stand up there and bark the whole time, right? So, like, a lot of times I've told my clients is that, it's not that it's bad to look out the window, it's that you just can't do it while barking, right? So if I take that privilege away from you, and that's something that you enjoy, once you learn the desired behavior, I may give that privilege to you back, and I could actually use that as a reward
Hmm.
for the right behavior. But in the beginning, once we are, while we are establishing that, let's make it easier on the dog to be successful and take that access to the window away.
Yeah. I agree.
And for the dogs that don't know place, again, coming back to the leash, you slip a leash on that dog, clip a leash to that dog. And like somebody knocks on the door and it's starting to run to the door to bark, step on the leash or pick it up in your hand, and you're starting to interrupt the behavior in that moment.
Hmm.
Hmm.
As soon as the barking stops, again, like, good job, way to go, Fido.
I know.
All right. So question number 4 is kind of related, honestly, to 2 and 3. So, and I know people have a hot take on this, but the question is, I've tried crate training, but my dog barks the entire time he's in there. How do I stop the barking or get him more used to his crate? And I say this as a hot take because I see so many people who are like, crate training's mean. I don't want to use a crate. And we just created this in our own minds. If we're using it properly, it's not mean. Our dogs don't think of it as punishment unless we use it incorrectly. So, what are your suggestions for general crate training, not barking in the crate, being more accepting of the crate?
I think I like to describe the crate too as We use cribs with children. We use bassinets with children. It's a safe place for them to go, especially when you're a newer mom and you're still navigating going and making a fresh cup of tea or coffee without having to hold something in your arms the entire time. It shouldn't be seen as such a negative thing. And dogs, we have to understand, are den dwelling creatures. Like instinctually, they like to have a den. That is factual information. So starting it off right, as soon as you get a dog, you adopt a dog, you get a new puppy, and you just reward heavily for going inside and hanging out in there, shutting the door, opening the door. I personally like to feed dogs in the crate. So just even having the door open and having the dog go in and eat inside the crate will make it way more natural and less of a traumatic event.
Mm-hmm.
And like Amanda mentioned earlier in this podcast, like don't just only use it whenever you leave the house. And then you guys can add to that too.
Especially if your dog's already anxious about you leaving and then you throw the dog in the crate, then you are basically making a negative association with that crate. My dog still eats in the crate. She's 2 years old, so like it's just, she loves it. Like she will just go, no problems at all, just go in her crate, even with the door open, just hang out in her crate. But, like Chrissy said, starting off, from the beginning and making those positive associations, like you eat in the crate, you get the best things in the crate. The crate is your safe place. Nobody gets to stick their fingers in there at you. That's your place to get away and relax, just like we like to get away in our bedroom and shut the door and, everybody just leave me alone for a minute, right?
Yeah.
This is my safe place. And, if you notice, like when dogs are wanting to get away, if they don't have a crate, a lot of times they will seek out, like under the bed or like in a dark, closed in space because it does make them feel safe. And I love what Chrissy said about like equating it to like babies. Like that's why we use like baby gates and things like that for our kids because like it's not safe for you to be able to free reign in the house right now because
Right.
you don't know boundaries, right? So just like we would do that for our babies, it's important that we do that for our dogs too, to keep them safe.
Mm-hmm. My Odin, the one in my lap, I know you can't see him right now, but when he gets tired of his siblings bothering him or barking, he'll come get in his crate and go to sleep because he's just like, I'm done with everyone. I'm going to my crate. No one can bother
Yeah.
me in here. And
Yeah.
it's funny, they know the boundaries. So like they don't bother him in that crate. Like that's his safe space. No one else's. So sometimes he takes like the best toys and puts them in there, but the dogs still leave him alone. But
Yeah.
yeah, he likes it. Like he likes having access to it to go take a break.
Yeah. The crate stuff for me starts outside the crate just because most dogs who aren't able to be crated are usually the ones pacing around the house. So like I tend to do a lot of tethering and place work because it's not necessarily the crate, it's the fact that they can't move or do anything. So that just winds them up and they end up being bad. So like I'm not gonna slap you in a crate and you can't even sit down for 2 seconds, all of these things. And then most people don't think about the physical component that needs to be done before you create a dog sometimes, or even mental. And then they put a very wound up, high energy, I woke up at 6 a.m., let me put you in a crate at 7 a.m. kind of dog. Like they're barking the entire time. It's like, yeah, because he's like full of, it's morning time. It's time to do things. So I think that's where you see a lot of struggle because there's just nothing done before the crating to set the dog up for success in the kennel. But yeah, everything else kind of goes hand in hand. But that's where I come at it from that angle first because again, like a tired kid, they may cry for like 2 minutes because oh my gosh, I don't want to go to bed. But like you put them in bed and they're like out, like a light switch. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's a huge component when it comes to crate training and making dogs comfortable in the kennel as well.
It's
Yeah.
100% my kid. I'm just like, I don't want to go to bed. And as soon as you lay her down, she's asleep.
Yeah. I mean, it sounds like my husband. He's like, I don't need a nap. I'm fine. And then 3 seconds later, he's
Yep.
like, oh, I was just resting my eyes. Yeah.
Resting my eyes.
Okay. So the fifth question, And you guys probably hear this one a lot too. How do I stop my dog from jumping on guests? Or really anyone? How do I stop my dog from jumping on people?
The
Chris and
easiest
Amanda are gonna
thing,
say leash.
the easiest thing is a leash.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Uh,
And also make sure that you're not rewarding your dog for jumping.
yeah,
What is
it's
your
yeah.
expectation? What is your expectation? If your expectation is for the dog to not jump, it's kind of unfair for when the dog is jumping and you're going, oh, wish I had a good dog, right? And then expect in like the very next time for the dog not to jump. So like your expectations need to be clear to the dog. A lot of times I've seen, cases like this that, the dog is getting mixed signals and maybe one person in the household doesn't mind, but everybody else does. So, it's really important no matter what you're teaching your dog that you're very, very clear in what the expectation is
Right.
so that they can be successful.
Yeah. And it could be as easy as like naming your command, hug or up or
Yeah.
jump or whatever you want to name it. So like when the dog does get corrected for it, it's not unfair. There was an expectation set. You didn't follow through the expectation. We go through that battle, whatever the battle may look like, and then you guys kind of be on that page. There are certain dogs I care if they jump or not. And then that's I think a owner thing. If you don't care if your dog jumps and your guests care, tell your guests leave the dog alone.
Yeah.
So my Frenchie jumps. I could care less, to be honest. Like I act like I care sometimes, but Kristen knows I really don't care. And then so like people would try to be like, she's jumping. I'm like, okay. And I'll be like, Jen, just come over here. I like it makes them feel some type of way, but like I really don't care. So
hmm
that's just it's what you would like out of that relationship. But don't put your dog in a situation where they now get corrected for something that's been allowed in your household, you know?
Right.
Yeah.
I see that one a lot with, let's say at home, you let your dogs jump on the couch, but then you go
Hmm.
somewhere else and they jump and you try to correct them, but it doesn't quite work out. It's like, well, they don't get corrected for that at home. They literally don't know any better. And I see that all the time with people.
Yeah. It's the face that the dogs give you after you correct them. Like, wait,
Yeah.
what what just happened here? This is not normal. Yeah,
Right.
it is
Exactly.
pretty interesting. But I think that's where the obedience comes in because then you could now sub that out with like send them to place.
Yeah.
Here's
Yeah.
your placement that we bring everywhere. You go to placement, we're at this person's house, and you're not battling. So people always, especially I had this one conversation a really long time ago with this guy who was gung ho on obedience trainers versus behavior mod trainers. And like I get that there is a skill to both of them, but you can't do behavior mod without obedience. Like, what do you want the dog to do after you correct it? Just sit there and like sulk, you
Right.
know? That's really unfair, I think. Like
Yeah.
no guidance at all. And then so it's one of those situations where like now I'm just gonna tap into all this obedience that I have so I don't have to get into confrontation with my dog for something that I created.
hmm
Keeps your relationship intact for sure. Yeah.
Well, thank you guys for answering all of these questions. So, for anyone that wants to find the dog wizard in their area, how can they go about looking for a local trainer?
Thedogwizard.com. We actually have a locations page that you can type in your zip code and it will pull up the closest one to you.
Do you do virtual training or just in person?
Some trainers do virtual training, like I've done some virtual lessons with some people
Yeah,
before,
same.
like if they weren't near a local dog wizard. We're a lot of places. We have over 100 locations and one in Canada. But we're not everywhere yet, and so it's not always drivable for people. So it is something that some locations do. If someone reaches out, we'll connect them to the right people.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you guys so much. We appreciate you being on.
Yeah,
For
thank
sure.
you
Thank
for
you.
inviting us.
Thank you for tuning in to the Canine Culture Podcast. Please make sure you subscribe to the Canine Culture Podcast on your favorite podcast platform and make sure you're following us on social media. If you have any recommendations, any topics that you'd like to hear, if you know of any guests that would be good for the show, or if you yourself want to be a guest, please reach out to us. Send us an email at canineculturepodcast@gmail.com or send us a direct message on social media. Thank you for listening, and please share this with any of your dog-loving friends.